Time now for Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. We have the starts and sits that you need to dominate your fantasy leagues for week number 4. Let's get right to it with the start of the week for week number 4, and let's hope this guy delivers. Jalen Hurts is due for a big game. He's had a couple of good games lately, but hasn't had one of those big blow-up spots since week 1, and I think it's going to happen this week against the Chiefs defense that has struggled into the last 2 games against Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert. Hurts is going to run. We know that. He's averaging just shy of 60 yards rushing per game. And Lamar Jackson in that week 2 matchup had over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Let's just get that from Jalen Hurts, and then he can flush away all his woes and give a big performance in week number 4. Love the setup for him as a potential top 5 fantasy quarterback. Other starts for me for this week, I'm going to stick with the Eagles, go back to Miles Sanders because I hope Nick Sirianni goes back to Miles Sanders. Zach Moss coming off a strong game, I think keeps that going. A lot of targets coming for Jalen Waddle and Jacoby Myers and Corey Davis, so I love the revenge game. Corey Davis has the revenge game against the Titans this week. Dave, let's take a look at your starts for week number 4. Tell me about Chuba Hubbard stepping in for the injured Christian McCaffrey. How good is he going to do? And can Cordero Patterson keep this up?
You picked him up off the waiver wire. Now you got to start him. And I love the way that he looks as far as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's got good speed. He looks comfortable running those routes. And Sam Darnold has been throwing to his running back all season long, including last week after Christian McCaffrey left the game. A 24.7% target share to running backs. Chuba Hubbard will rack up the catches, rack up the total yards, and you hope he finds the end zone against the Cowboys.
All right, so we'll see if he keeps it going. Can keep it going after stepping in for McCaffrey last week, and Patterson doing a nice job in PPR, so hopefully he keeps it going as well. Heath, the starts for you: Kirk Cousins, Mike Davis, David Montgomery, Michael Pittman, and Dalton Schultz. So tell us about Michael Pittman, and then Dave, you could follow because you don't like Michael Pittman this week.
Listen, he's got 24 targets in his last 2 games. I'm going to start just about every wide receiver gets 24 targets over a 2-game stretch. Yes, it's a good Miami defense, a good secondary. It so far this year has not been one that you have to avoid in the passing game, though. So I think he will be a solid low-end number 2 wide receiver with a little more upside than that.
I'm worried about him just getting good targets from Carson Wentz. We know that Carson Wentz has been under a lot of pressure. He's throwing in the general direction of Michael Pittman, but they haven't been exactly on target. I think he's a good floor play in PPR. What he gave you last week, 12 PPR points. If you expect that from him, that's fine, but I don't think that's good enough to make him a top 24 receiver this week against a pesky Dolphins secondary.
All right, other sits for you: Myles Gaskin, Trey Sermon, Kenny Golladay, Michael Pittman, as we mentioned, along with Ryan Tannehill. Heath, the players you're sitting this week, you got Kenyon Drake, Tyson Williams, Will Fuller, Chase Claypool, and Dallas Goedert. I think a lot of people look at Claypool and say, okay, the Steelers wide receiver core not exactly whole, but Claypool, a lot of targets last week, but a little difficult matchup this week against the Packers.
Yeah, it really seems like he needs both Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster to be out to see a huge target share, and I think we're going to get at least one of those guys back, possibly both those, and this is a bad matchup against the Packers secondary. Even if those guys were out, that would mean that he's going to draw the toughest coverage from the Packers, and I'm not sure I'd like him in that situation either. This is a bad Steelers offense, and really, if you're getting targets more than 5 yards down the field, you're going to be really inconsistent. It's
nice that you have Tyson Williams as a sit in week 4 because he was definitely a sit in week number 3. Let's go to my sits for week number 4. Damien Harris, just a tough matchup going against that Tampa Bay defense. Game script is not going to be in his favor, so a guy that's gotten a lot of work, at least in the first 2 games, I think is going to struggle in week 4, struggled in week 3 against a good New Orleans run defense, but bad situation coming for him against the Buccaneers. Remember, James White is out, so maybe he does get a little bit more in the passing game, but still taking on that Tampa Bay run defense is going to be tough. Keeping him out in the end zone, I think he struggles in week 4. Maybe you heard about that game, Tom Brady going back to Foxborough. For more fantasy football coverage, check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast, the best podcast around to give you all the fantasy football goodness that you need. It's available wherever podcasts are found. And don't forget to check out Fantasy Football Today on CBS Sports HQ, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We help you dominate your fantasy leagues. For Heath, for Dave, I'm Jamie. Thanks for watching Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local.